the Big Bend National Park, which is of course in Texas. In front of me is the Santa Elena Canyon, which was formed by the Rio Grande River. The left side of the canyon on the screen is in Mexico, and the right side is in the US. So this is the same river which I seen almost a month ago and almost 1,000 miles up north in New Mexico. So it made its way all the way down to the country of Mexico. So, and again, the right side is Texas. The goal for today is actually try to get into that canyon. Last time I was here, I tried walking across this kind of a floodplain, and it was all muddy. There's no water, but it was like muddy, really slippery. It was like a literal slip and slide. And you know, I was literally slipping and sliding, and it's like, I mean, the shoes were like caked in mud, and you can't really walk there. I couldn't really walk there. I'm hoping that today I'll be more lucky. Okay, let's go find out. Yeah, I'm trying to get into the canyon, and last time I was here, this area was completely impassable. Well, kind of is barely passable now, and I can imagine that just a little sprinkle will turn this into a quagmire. And I still need to cross this little creek, but judging by the people there, wow, interesting, they're like mud bricks. Judging by the people wearing shoes, I'd assume that there's gotta be a dry crossing there. The sign shows that the trail goes that way. The question is where it's coming from. Well, let's see. Well, yeah, I wouldn't call it much of a trail. However, under the surface of the water in that mud, I see people's footprints. Huh. Go figure. And I'm going that way. So all of these majestic mountains, which are again in Texas, used to be, I mean, this is actually in Mexico, but those ones are in Texas. At some point were at the bottom of an ocean or a sea. You can see there are some fossil oysters. It says fossilized oysters. Yeah. When people think of Texas, they don't typically think of a landscape like this. I mean, if you ask people what's Texas, they'd say endless prairies, farms, ranches, oil rigs, big cities. But nobody, I mean, very few people would think of mountains and associate them with Texas. Even myself, even though I've been here, I know that these places exist. But when I'm here, I really don't think that I'm in Texas. I think that I'm in some wild west canyons of Utah, Arizona, or New Mexico. So the left side again is Mexico, and the right side is Texas, and you are allowed to float in this river. However, I mean, like with a kind of paddle boarding or kayaking, whatnot. I mean, you're not supposed to land on that side, but you can get as close to the bank as you want, and you still consider it to be legal. And this is really one of the few times during this trip I really wish I brought my inflatable paddleboard with me. That would have been so interesting to actually go into the canyon, because the trail does not go all the way in. I don't think so, but you know, you can certainly float into the canyon. Yes, indeed, the walls are absolutely vertical, complete straight down, like 90 degrees. I'm just a couple hundred yards from the mouth of the canyon. Again, the river flows here and kind of opens up to the views like this. Those are the Chisos mountains in the distance, just under 7,500 feet above sea level. Not quite as tall as the Guadalupe Mountains. Those are, I think, 8,500 feet, but very close. I'd say probably from the appearance they're probably more impressive. I may even drive up there. I've already been there, but I may do it again. That formation in the distance is called the mule ears. The mule, like the donkey horse. It's kind of interesting that during this trip I seen the bear ears and now the mule ears. Bear ears in Utah and the mule ears here in Texas. And I've also seen the whale mouth in New Mexico and the fish mouth in Utah also. I'm kind of seeing all kinds of similar things during this trip. And again, these mountains are just spectacular. Absolutely look very rugged and kind of sharp edges. And it's in Texas. I'm taking a quick hike, more like a walk, in the Big Bend National Park. It's about a mile, 120 feet elevation change. I think it's probably the last kind of organized walk slash hike during this trip. A little bit sad, but you know, I'll definitely continue. I think this is also quite impressive. Almost like Utah canyons. This is also quite impressive, even though it's not kind of mentioned as a must-see, but they call this the pour off, I guess, because at certain times of the year, I'd assume the water flows from there. I guess the water kind of waterfalls all the way down here into this wash. Wow, interesting. Yeah, I'm glad that I took this one last hike, actually walk to here. And again, my attention was drawn to this grayish thing here, like the pour off. But then there are some kind of caves or not real caves, but more like openings in this rock. Even there. Well, yeah. I'd say, I mean, not too bad for a Texas canyon. Although, actually, there is this state park also in West Texas, but it's north of here, called Palo Duro State Park. And they call it, I mean, they have these really massive canyons there, canyon as well. They call it the Grand Canyon of Texas. It's also, I've been there also. Quite impressive as well. I just couldn't resist. Even though I've been to these mountains, I still, one last fling before I finish the season, decided to go and get a last breath of fresh air. For the season, of course, not ever. Yeah, the road here is quite twisty, so they don't allow vehicles over 24 feet. So my camper run is 18 feet, well, with a bicycle maybe 19 or 20, still under 24. Well, that also helps here. Yes, it's indeed true. The air here is much nicer than down by the river. So that kind of opening in the distance, they call it the windows. There is a trail which goes all the way down there, and there is a very steep drop off, pretty much, cliff which goes down, pretty much down all the way down to the valley. It's an interesting hike as well. Not too long, but it's kind of getting late, so I don't think I'm gonna be doing it today or in the near future. Yeah, that's another view of the windows. I think with this beautiful view I'm gonna finish my adventures at the Big Bend National Park, and maybe most of my adventures for this trip, but of course stay tuned for new season. Yeah, they have the javelinas here, I guess, like wild pigs. I mean, they're not like feral pigs like in Florida, but like wild pigs. And yeah, I mean, that's why I don't want to be driving here after dark, because that one in Florida, that pig in Florida, actually ran over a pig in Florida, was enough for me.